Welcome to Arise with Christ. We share stories and truths related to the temple. Together with you, our hope is to fortify faith in Jesus Christ and experience joy in covenant keeping.
Hello, welcome to Arise with Christ. We are glad that you're here to listen. We have a fabulous episode to share with you. I'm Carolee Bailey, and I'm here with Anjali Plojek. Our guest is Brooke Jones.
Brooke is a dear friend to me, and since meeting her, I have always regarded her as an angel on earth. She's just so good at ministering to those around her. Elder Holland described earthly angels as people who are so good and so pure that angelic is the only word that comes to mind to describe them, and that is Brooke Jones to me. She's so angelic.
As you will hear in this episode, Brooke has been through some major health challenges in the last few years. Thanks to personal revelation and miracles, she is finding some relief now. I enjoyed spending time with her. She's a delightful person, and we think that you will find her delightful as well.
Brooke Jones values family, both past and present, as well as her identity as a child of God. She was raised by wonderful parents and is the oldest of 6 children. Brooke served a mission in the Washington Tacoma mission and graduated from Ricks College and BYU. She is married to Clayton, and they currently serve in a Provo YSA ward. They are the parents of 3 children. Brooke enjoys traveling, going for walks, riding her e-bike, backyard birding, sports, and being in nature. She has served in several primary presidencies and has a special love for the history of primary. She enjoys teaching the gospel and strives to receive revelation and recognize miracles in her life.
Brooke, you have a real love for primary as an organization and the history of primary becoming what it is today. Will you tell us more about that and how you developed that warm affinity for primary as an organization?
Sure. I love all the organizations of the church, but I do have a deep love for primary. And I'm not exactly sure when it began, but I was called to be a counselor to Kim Rowley, and we were talking about how we felt a connection to primary. And she is the great-granddaughter to Bishop Hess, who helped start the primary in the history. And my grandmother was the 9th general primary president of the church. So I've always felt drawn to the history of primary in that way too. And I've had the opportunity to serve in several primary presidencies. And I also got to serve in our state primary presidency with Anjali when she was the president there too. I just have a love for the children. I remember serving in the Linden 9th Ward, and my favorite memory there was I did a sharing time once, which they don't have anymore. But in it, I went around, we had like 100 children in our primary. And I remember going around to each child, and I actually remembered their name, which seemed like a miracle in and of itself. And I talked to them each about why they were so special and loved, and shared maybe a gift or something I'd seen from each of them. And I included the leaders also. And I just remember feeling just such a deep, love for each one of them. But when I got to the end of it, I asked if I'd forgotten anyone, because I did not want to forget a single one of them, because I loved them so much. And when the girls pointed out, yes, you forgot someone, I thought, oh no, who did I forget? I was feeling sad about that. And she said, you forgot you. Aww. And it was so sweet for her to recognize my importance, that God loved me too. And that's what primary children do. They give us their love. When you serve in primary, you get so filled with the music, filled with the children. They're simple testimonies. They're just so easy to love and be loved. So that's why I've loved serving in primary.
Oh, I love that. That's such a sweet experience, how you were ministering and fulfilling your calling and you got ministered to. And so often that is the case when we do serve, that we are served. Would you take just a minute and maybe talk us through your journey along the covenant path, kind of your childhood and what that has looked like as you moved towards the temple and making and keeping covenants?
Sure. I grew up with wonderful parents. I'm the oldest of 6 children, and my parents have served valiantly in their callings, and they have always tried to do family home evenings and scripture study. And from a very young age, we would go and visit. Both my grandparents lived just right above the Provo temple. And almost every Sunday, we'd go and visit both of them. And as we drive by that Provo temple, my parents would point out, what is that? And I remember when I was 3, my mom would remind me anyway, that I would call it the Poltem, because I would think it's the temple. And I guess I said it wrong at one point. And I think it's the temple. No, I do it wrong. So I'd switch it back again and be like, it's the Poltem. So I would call it the Poltem. And I was always pointed towards the temple. And I remember going to the Jordan River Temple open house They took us there too when I was a young child. We were waiting in the rain with my grandma there too. And I remember being prepared for baptism too and really wanting to be baptized because I wanted to follow Jesus. And I really feel like baptism, and now too, and after serving in primary, it's preparatory to our temple ordinances. It's kind of practice that we get as we keep those baptismal covenants. We are prepared to make more covenants in the temple. And so I think that's what my baptism did for me, making those covenants. Then I don't know that I understood it at that point in time. I just knew I wanted to follow Jesus Christ. But over time, I understood more and more. And now I understand even more over the years of what that means to me. But I was really excited to go to the temple. Like I remember my guy friends got to go earlier for their missions. And I was very jealous. I felt like I was equally or maybe even more prepared than they were. And I was very jealous that they got to go and receive their endowments. And I had to wait a little bit longer. But I did serve a mission. I served in the Washington Tacoma mission. And prior to that, I was able to go to the temple, go to the Mount Timpanogos temple. And I remember feeling as I went in kind of anxious, like, am I really worthy to be here? And I think Satan was working on me to maybe make me not feel quite prepared. And I remember the initiatory, just removing all of that from me. It was so sweet to me and probably my favorite part of that temple experience. And then I only invited my grandparents and my parents to come. I didn't want people staring at me and watching me. And what if I did something wrong? I have an anxious soul. So I really wanted to focus that first time I went to. And I remember just trying to focus on the feelings that I had because it was so different than anything I experienced prior. And it was a good experience for me. And I had my mom go back with me each week before I went on my mission because I heard going back is good. It helps you feel more comfortable. And it did that for me too. And I felt more power before I served my mission too from attending the temple.
That's awesome. And then eventually you were sealed in the temple?
Yes. And maybe I should backtrack too. So when I was in high school, they announced the Mount Timpanogos temple was being built. And right now we have the Linden temple being built in our area. It's kind of similar for my children. But I remember being super excited and I had my license. I would drive over and watch the progress of the Mount Timpanogos temple. And I remember in college, maybe my first year in college, I went to the temple open house and I remember going into the bride's room. And I remember looking in the mirror with my mom and thinking, well, someday will I be here? And I really wanted, it to be there. We were able to be in the celestial room for one of the dedications. And that was really special to me too, because it's kind of my temple. And so that's where I received my endowment. And that's also where I was sealed to Clayton. So it's my special temple. Now Linden's becoming my next special temple as we watch it being built just down the street from me.
I really like that you mentioned that you feel like it's your temple and your special temple, because I always feel like that too. And I know that in talking to people about so many temples being built in so many new places, it is really beautiful to hear about how they try to make those temples unique and individual and special to the people who live there. So it does feel like home. So it feels like we're coming home. And I just think that that's such a beautiful analogy.
Oh, I like that. When I came back from my mission, when people ask me on my mission, what do you want to do when you get home? I would say, I was so tired. I'd say, I want to sleep. I want to take a nap and I want to go to the temple. I'm like, maybe I'll go and take a nap in the temple is what I would say. But I remember going to the temple just maybe the week after, a few days after I got home. And I remember walking in and feeling a little disoriented, being home from my mission, really homesick for my mission and just having them say welcome. I do remember the Spirit just flooding me and being like, oh, I feel like I'm at home again, and just feeling that coming back home feeling too.
Beautiful.
Now, you alluded earlier to your connection to primary through your grandma, Patricia Pinager, who served as the general primary president. And I know you have some thoughts and things that you've learned about the history of primary. Would you share with us what you'd like to about that?
Yes. There was a book made by my grandma, I think was called to be the 9th general primary president. And they made this book about the history and they went through all of the general primary presidents up to that point. So I remember reading the history. I just loved it. And with Kimberly talking about her grandpa being a part of that story too, when I served with her, I did some research and reading, and I just loved how it began from such a small and simple thing. So if you're okay, I'd like to kind of take you on a journey.
Yes.
The history of primary.
I would love that.
So here we go. It says, picture the town of Farmington, Utah in 1877. Fathers and older boys spent long hours farming. Mothers and older girls spent their time running their households. The younger children had a lot of unsupervised leisure time. Many parents were fatigued and neglecting to teach their children. Many in the community were worried about the mischievous behavior of the children, especially the boys. There was a bishop that was concerned enough to have a meeting about the matter. And maybe I'll add in here too, I went to a women's conference recently at BYU, and there was a woman next to me I introduced myself to. And I noticed her last name was Hess, like this bishop is John W. Hess. And I asked if she was part of that family, and she said yes. And she said he had like over 60 children. So a lot of these primary children that he was probably concerned about were his own.
Okay.
But I found that really interesting when she was talking with her. So this bishop was John W. Hess, and he invited the mothers only to a meeting, and he explained his concerns about the children. And there was a woman named Aurelia Rogers who attended this meeting and listened attentively to the bishop's concerns. And let me go back. So Aurelia had just the background of her. She was very familiar with caring for children. When she was 12 or 13, she and her 14-year-old sister Ellen assumed the care of their younger siblings after their mother died in the flight from Nauvoo in 1846. And a few months later, their father, Orson Spencer, began serving a 3-year mission, leaving the 2 oldest children to watch over the others during their journey to and settlement in the Salt Lake Valley.
Oh, wow.
And there's other stories that go along with that. And by her 18th birthday, she had married Thomas Rogers and given birth to their first son. And over the next 2 decades, she mothered 12 children, losing 5 in early childhood. So she loved children, but she also knew the pains of that too. And now if we go back to Farmington in 1877, after that meeting with Bishop Hess, Aurelia continued to ponder what could be done. She was especially concerned about the boys and referred to some of the older ones as hoodlums. She described her distress about the young boys as a fire that seemed to burn within me. She continued to ponder the idea of an organization for little boys wherein they could be taught every good thing and how to behave. And shortly after that, there was a Relief Society conference in the March of 1887, and Aurelia had the opportunity to discuss her worries with Eliza R. Snow, who was the de facto Relief Society president at the time. They hadn't really officially called her yet, and Emmeline B. Wells. And she asked Eliza, "What will our girls do for good husbands if the state of things continues?" And as Eliza contemplated this question, Aurelia pressed on, "Could there not be an organization for little boys and have them trained to make better men?" And in Aurelia's words, Eliza was silent a few moments and then said there might be such a thing and that she would speak to the First Presidency about it. Before that could happen, Brigham Young died in August of 1877. But according to Aurelia's notes, Eliza continued to believe that the idea of an organization for young boys was a good one, and in time presented it to the senior apostle and soon-to-be church president, John Taylor, and to the others of the Quorum of the 12. And after they approved the proposal, Eliza wrote a letter to Bishop Hess of the Farmington Ward explaining the matter to him. And then soon after that, he met with Aurelia. And after they talked a while on the subject, he asked her if she'd be willing to preside over an organization of the children. And up until this point, Aurelia hadn't even thought about the girls being a part of it. It was really just for the boys. But she realized almost immediately that the organization would not be complete without the young girls too. Among other reasons, singing was necessary. And I love this. And they needed the voices of little girls as well as boys to make it sound as well as it should be. So I kind of feel like girls were almost included because it's Bishop, but like also she's like, well, we need to have girls because we have to sing and it needs to sound good. And something interesting happened to her too. Like after she was called, she said that while thinking over what was to be done for the best good of the children, I seemed to be carried away in the spirit, or at least I experienced a feeling of untold happiness, which lasted 3 days and nights. During that time, nothing could worry or irritate me. If my little ones were fretful or the work went wrong, I had patience, could control in kindness, and managed my household affairs easily. This was a testimony to me that what was being done was from God. And then on Sunday, August 11th, 1876, there was a public meeting where Bishop Hess set Aurelia apart and 2 counselors to preside over the primary association in Farmington. And at the meeting, Bishop Hess charged the parents to feel the importance of this movement. And they named it the Primary Mutual Improvement Association, and it included children's ages 6 to 14. And I think children as young as 4 could attend if they thought they were mature enough to handle it or something like that. And then Sister Eliza R. Snow suggested it be called the primary. And the first time the primary was held was 2 weeks later on August 25th, 1878 in a Little Rock Chapel in Farmington, Utah, with 215 of the 224 children present. They then began having meetings at 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. And they would put the smaller children in the front and had older children sit on the end of the benches to kind of help crowd control, monitor the children and help. And they met all together for the first 10 years of primary. All the children met all together. So initially it was not well attended to. Aurelia was really frustrated. There wasn't a lot of support. They really weren't feeling the importance of it. And it took some time for parents to feel the importance of primary and want their children to attend and to support that. One other interesting thing that she described her early responsibility was it would be impossible for one who had never experienced anything of the kind to imagine our feelings as we stood before an audience of children who had come there to receive instruction from us. We were very weak indeed, but felt to lean upon the Lord in all humility. And I love that she felt that power of those children. And later, something I heard Kate Holbrook shared this once at a BYU Women's Conference talk. And Aurelia says this: after the organization, I was nearly overcome by the opposite power and was sunken, as it were, into the very depths of misery. I felt my unworthiness so keenly that I could scarcely attend to my duties. And I went to my meetings weeping by the way, being humbled to the very earth. I had been made to feel my entire dependence on God, the Eternal Father. And I thought, how many of us have felt that with callings? Initially, like maybe excited about it, and then all of a sudden realizing the responsibility that you have and what that means. And that the adversary also, I think, was working on her too, to help to try to stop this important primary movement from happening.
Absolutely.
And then soon after the primary was organized, Eliza organized another primary in the Salt Lake 11th Ward with Louis B. Felt as the president. And she continued to organize more throughout the Utah Territory. And in the 1880s, when they officially called the first presidencies for the Relief Society and for the Ladies Organization and for the Young Ladies Organization and for the primary. And Louis B. Felt was called to be the first general primary president. And Aurelia was one that helped Eliza decide who it would be. So I thought it was interesting. And then there are just little things after that, like when Louis B. Felt, like she was the one who started kindergarten in Utah just by seeing a need. And once she was walking with one of her counselors and she noted a boy that was crippled and had crutches, and she thought, we need to find something for him. And they talked to the First Presidency about getting some rooms for children in the hospital. And that's how the primary children's hospital kind of began too. And so there really were just all these simple things that brought about great things. And that's what I love about primary. It was organized because there was a need. There was a concerned bishop. A mother's heart was pricked. She had a conversation and they got approval and a calling. And now we have this primary organization with well over 1 million children. And it's such a blessing to them and their families. And I feel like we can apply it to our own lives too. What burns in our own hearts and my heart, what conversations do I need to have, or what things can I start that can just start so small and simple, but bring about something great.
That is a really beautiful thought. And thinking about all of these individuals who were filled with godly power because they were trying to do the Lord's will, but who could have thought that this seemingly small start would grow into such beautiful, amazing organizations that serve and bless so many?
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I think it's so interesting that she had the experience of when she was working on this and trying to organize it, she felt like, oh, things are going so well at home. Everything's being taken care of while I'm focused on this. But then later she had the opposite experience where Satan came in after the fact and really made her feel dark and down. And we can experience both of those things too, right? In our callings and in our service and in our mothering or friendshiping or whatever it is. So there are definite things to learn from those stories and experiences that we can draw on in our own circumstances. So thank you so much for sharing that.
I'll add to, I love that they share that too, because sometimes in history, those things are hidden. We only hear the positive things, that she had these, untold happiness, and we don't ever hear the hard that went along with it. So I love it when we hear the full true story. And I'm sure there's more that goes along with it too. There's so many different records and things. So I hope I've done it justice, because as I read, there are different accounts and things like that too. So to their posterity, I hope I've said things correctly as I understand it to be.
I think that goes back to what we learned from the Sacred Grove. What Joseph experienced was he had the moment of great light, and then there was darkness. And he experienced that kind of on both ends of it, that there was this feeling of darkness, and then came the light. And then after the light, then there was kind of doubt and questioning and uncertainty. So I just find that so interesting that that's often a pattern that the adversary looks for when we're vulnerable in different ways, or it might be when we're thriving and he still comes after us when we're doing something good that he wants to thwart.
I was just having that conversation with my 16-year-old son this morning, actually. One of I think it was our stake president several years ago, he had talked about that pattern from Satan. And he talked about how a lot of time we'll see the revelation, we'll feel, understand, receive the revelation, and Satan comes in as that second voice, that doubter. He comes in and he uses logic to the best of his ability to really bring us down. And if we can recognize those patterns, how much more powerful can we be in our lives to overcome that and push through those dark times? Because it will happen. Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought I might share this today, but maybe I'll share it right here. When I was in college, I kind of went through a period of depression, and it was right after I decided I wanted to serve a mission. And so it's interesting that it came at that time. And I was a relief society teacher in my ward, and I was giving a lesson on the first vision. And I remember reading it, and I got to the point where after Joseph had the vision and people were doubting him, and he was surprised at the intensity of the opposition against him. And he talks about how he felt that the adversary knew that he was going to be a annoyer of his kingdom. And I remember that hitting me so hard. And I felt like the adversary is bringing me down right now because he knows I'm being a annoyer to his kingdom. And I remember thinking, I am serving that mission. I am not letting him stop me, even though I'm not feeling mentally and emotionally as good as I wanted to be. I knew that that's what was happening, and I wanted to serve my mission. And I did improve. I actually had a blessing from my grandpa Pinager that told me that those feelings would go away. I was starting to feel hopeless, that maybe my depression feelings would not leave me. I tried different things, and I felt it was a priesthood blessing that kind of helped me to do a lot better. And I did serve my mission, and over the course of my mission, I feel like I was fully healed. I recognized that as I gave myself to the Lord, I was able to be filled. And I know that's not the experience. My husband and I, Clayton, serve in a YSA ward right now. And I know a lot of missionaries are opposite of that. Missions are stressful, and oftentimes they bring out anxiety and depression. And I know that's the experience of many people, which is so difficult for that to happen during that time. But for me, it actually was healing, and it actually had the opposite effect, which I am eternally grateful for.
I think that so often we can question ourselves when the darkness comes. We have the moment of light, enlightenment, confirmation, but then when it's followed by some darkness and difficulty, it can be hard to push through that. And like your example of trying different things and not finding solutions, it can be confusing to determine what is personal revelation. Did I receive that? And then what's the influence of the adversary, and what's my own feeling or emotion? And making those different distinctions can be really challenging.
Yes. And I don't believe that depression is from the adversary necessarily,
for sure,
or anything like that. I've had other times in my life. And then too, I was doing all the right things and still having these feelings. And I don't know exactly how it came or why, or understand, or even begin to understand the intricacies of it all. But that was kind of my experience at that time.
Yeah. But that complexity adds to it, right? Because there can be a mental health question versus our own emotions versus the spirit versus the adversary. All those things can come into play, and trying to sort that out. And depending on our own personal level of experiences, and becoming acquainted with how the Spirit does communicate with us and what is an answer from heaven. Yeah, all of those complexities. I think your experience is really enlightening and important, because showing the importance of pressing on and seeking answers, and then trying to be obedient to what the Lord has told you to do already, and act even when it's difficult. So.
And maybe I'll share one more thing. During that hard time in college, I remember talking to my bishop about this hard time, and he offered me a blessing, and he mentioned I should go to the temple. And at the time I wasn't endowed. And I feel like back during that time frame, we didn't do temple baptisms a lot. It was more like only when the ward had something scheduled. And I'll be honest, so I'm 5'11". I always felt really self-conscious doing baptisms, because sometimes the baptizers were a lot shorter than me, or I felt like I would create this great wave. I mean, I just always just kind of felt a little awkward doing it. And so I was like, I don't really want to go do baptisms. And it seemed like strange instruction to me. Mm-hmm. And shortly after, I was endowed and things, but I had another time in my life where depression crept back. And the words from that blessing that Bishop Skousen gave me in my singles ward flooded back into my mind that I needed to go to the temple. And even though I didn't want to go to the temple, I didn't feel like I had it in me sometimes to go and be there. I remember feeling that strongly, and I went more than I had ever gone before during that time frame. And it was a great blessing to me.
I think it is so important to recognize that sometimes going to the temple is hard. And there are various reasons for that. We all have different reasons for that, if that's happening to us. But the key that you said to push through and to take that challenge and to keep going until we find that peace. Keep seeking. That's the plan. That's exactly what we need to do to push forward to receive the light at the end.
And whatever the reasons for the difficulty or opposition to going to the temple, the invitation from a prophet is, if you don't yet love going to the temple, go more, not less. And the only way to find out if that's true for you is to go more, not less, and try it and see if you can get past that opposition or difficulty or challenge. And the instruction is clear from a prophet about how to resolve it.
Well, I remember once being really exciting, and a sister speaking about how that going to the temple was very difficult for her because she had like ADHD and it was hard to sit still. And I feel that way too. Sometimes I thought I have so much I need to get done. Like I have to just go and sit and be still when I have so much to get done, and it's been hard. And I remember talking to my mom and she thought, I wish it could be faster. Like I've done this before. Like, can we expedite it? And we could do lots of endowment, like I could go and do several people. And I thought the same thought too. Like, I'm sure we could do that.
We've all thought that on occasion.
But I also thought, I think I need it to be as long as it is. I think I need to be still that long because that's when revelation happens. And that's when I'm able to feel more peace and not just let's do more, just get to the next one and trying to rush the experience. And so, because I've felt that too, like I don't want to go and just sit. And I've had some health problems more recently. And I actually felt like this is nice. I can just sit and help someone. I don't have to be doing anything else. It's one of the things I can do, just sitting here and feel like I'm being of worth and being helpful and serving.
Yeah, that's interesting to explore the other side. Now you've had both experiences in your life where it's been hard to sit and now you've appreciated sitting and there will be different seasons.
You referenced some recent health challenges, and I'm interested in how during this time of difficulty and facing physical challenges, you have drawn on spiritual strength to endure those physical challenges in your life.
Sure. So in 2020, I got COVID and I didn't expect it to hit me as hard as it did. And it hit me in different ways than most people too. It was more nausea and vomiting. And I just couldn't keep anything down for a long period of time. So I went to the hospital, ER several times, plus other things that were going on too with my health. I mean, just feeling horrible in all ways, it seemed. And so I stayed in the hospital for a little bit too. And sorry. I was a little bit familiar with being in the hospital though. And I also had very difficult pregnancies where I'd go frequently for IV treatments and things like that too, where it kind of gives you time to just be by yourself. At this time, you couldn't have family or friends there. And so I was able to talk with God and kind of wonder why. I can't say I didn't question why am I feeling this when I knew other people had it and they were out riding their bike and feeling fine. And I was worried. I've given a blessing that I would be okay, but I was not feeling okay. And I'll be honest, I also had strong feelings that I needed to write my children letters. And I started wondering, like, are these goodbye letters? Or like, why am I feeling that? But I kept thinking, no, the blessings that I'd be okay. So I'm going to, keep pressing forward. And during that time, there was just a lot of prayer and a lot of trying to figure things out. And I'll kind of jump ahead a little bit. I felt not well for a while, and still my health is not quite 100% either. But I very gradually, very slowly got it feeling better. As in going grocery shopping took probably 9 months or something like that to be able to feel like I could do that. And I'd be exhausted after that too. Or I would try to do things and then pretend like I felt better, but not be feeling so great. And I started to improve. And then like a year and a half ago, I kind of went downhill again. And during that time, I remember the words, "How firm a foundation," just coming into my mind as I would be praying about, why am I feeling this way? And because prior doctors said, we don't really understand it. We don't really know what to do. I thought I could go to a doctor, but I'm not sure if they can help me because all the other ones could never help me before. And just the words would come into my mind, like, fear not, I am with thee. Oh, be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I'll give thee aid. I'll strengthen thee, help thee, cause thee to stand upheld by my righteous, omnipotent hand. Thank you. And every time I would go to pray, I would have those words come back into my mind. Fear not, I am with thee. And it just kind of became my mantra that I would just kind of repeat over. And I shared my testimony in sacrament meeting once about it. And my neighbor, Amy Peterson, was there and heard it. And afterwards, she came up to me and said, I put on this necklace today. I've never worn it before. She's not a jewelry wearer. And she said, I think it's for you. And she handed it to me and had the words "fear not" on it. And so it became kind of special to me. And I've given it now to several people too. And so I guess that time's helped me to just remember to fear not. He is with me and he is helping me on this journey. It's not that he is helping me to stand. And at that same time, my son was struggling on his mission, and he just wanted to feel good so that he could serve God. And the other verse too, but just talks about how the Lord would succor him on land or the sea. As thy days may demand, thy succor shall be. And that hymn has just become very sweet to me. And there's been other times that hymns or songs during some of my challenging times in life have come to my mind and just been revelation, I feel, and just blessed me.
That's an awesome example of receiving spiritual strength. And I'm so sorry for all that you've been through. You're amazing.
I had the opportunity of serving with Brooke at that time in the state primary, and it was hard knowing how much she was suffering and not being able to do anything really other than pray and have hope for that blessing of hers. And it came so slowly. And I have never seen anyone suffer with more dignity and grace than I did you, Brooke. And you were such a beautiful example to so many people during that time. And I know it doesn't make it any easier.
You were sweet, because one of the hardest things was not feeling like I could serve. And I remember our state president invited Clayton and I into his office and thought, is he going to give us a calling or what is going on? But I think he was checking on my health or seeing if I need to be released or whatever too. And I said, please don't release me. Primary was such a positive distraction for me. And I feel like I can serve people in this way. Like, don't take that from me, even though I felt nauseated, didn't feel well and things like that too. I felt like as I worked on, because I was over the baptisms and I felt important and needed in helping those kids make those special covenants. And even though I'm sure someone with greater health could have done a better job, I was grateful I was able to continue to do that until we were released to serve in the YSA ward.
Brooke, you've been through a lot and you have faithfully served the Lord in difficult circumstances, and you continue to do that. What have you learned about making and keeping covenants?
First, I'll add, I've also been so blessed. I feel so blessed in my life from just having a great family and a great, wonderful just examples around me. But definitely my temple covenants blessed me with hard times and in good times. And when I just initially think about it, I think about like peace and power and protection and revelation or direction. And I think definitely my temple covenants bring me peace and knowing that my family can be eternal, and just the peace I feel when I'm in the temple and the knowledge that I received there about my Savior. Power, I think it's hard to distinguish power from temple covenants versus, I feel a lot of power just knowing that I'm a daughter of God. That's something, some of my testimony I've had to really work for, but knowing that I am a child of heavenly parents, it's embedded deep in my soul. It's something that I haven't had to struggle with. And I feel powerful knowing that I'm a daughter of God, but then also I'm empowered with the blessings of the priesthood from the temple too. And that does bring additional power in my life, but it's hard to distinguish sometimes power and protection. I'm grateful for my holy garments too, and I feel like they are a protection to me. And when I put them on, I try to remember the covenants I make in the temple and think about putting on Christ. And that's something that's blessed my life. I don't always do it. Sometimes I'm better about doing that than other times. But the temple too has been a great place of revelation. I feel like that's where God has spoke very clearly to me. And I find I get more out of it when I come with questions. And sometimes some experiences are I just go and I get home and I don't really have experiences. But some of my most profound sacred revelation I've received have been within the walls of the temple.
That's beautiful. I love that we can receive revelation there, and it can be enlightening for us to go. And you mentioned earlier that your mom had some ideas about making temple service more meaningful. What are some of the things that she has taught you that have been helpful for you?
Well, my parents are amazing right now. They're actually serving a full-time mission in the Orem, Utah mission. They need more senior missionaries. So if anyone's listening and thinking about it, think about it. They are so busy. And they'll be the first to tell you too, the sooner you can get the new converts to the temple to do work for their ancestors, the greater it is for their conversion. But my parents have both been great examples of attending the temple. And My mom has given my children gifts when they turned 8 and like when they've gone in, well, it used to be 12, but when 11 or 12, for that age. And then when they turn 18, she's started giving a temple envelope to them. And she's asked them to take the acronym or the letters, their initials, and asked them to think of words that'd be special for them to have put on their temple envelope. And so there's only 2 grandchildren who turn 18 so far, and they're my children. And so I asked my mom to do one for me. And my initials are BBJ. So mine are believing, brave, and joyful. And so she's cross-stitched them and they're sewn now into my temple envelope. So when I go, I kind of peek at it. I mentioned to her, she's like, I don't know if that's legal or not. And I said, well, if it's good, it's probably legal. But it's something very special to me that she's done. And also, like, my mom embroidered my temple apron. And so when I'm in the temple, I always think of her. I always look at every stitch and just think about how much she loved me when she spent all the time. I am not a seamstress. I do not have sewing skills. I'm not patient in that area. And so whenever I go, I always look at those stitches and think about all the time that she put in. So growing up, there was always babies or toddlers in my house. And so when I went to the temple, my brother was probably 4 or 5, and she had children ranging all the ages. And so I know how busy she was. So I always think she really sacrificed to put time into that. And I always think of her and I'm there, and her example of being a temple goer.
I love the idea of meaningful gifts at significant times in the lives of children. That's really wonderful. And your mom has helped connect you to your ancestors as well. How has knowing and honoring your ancestors blessed your life?
I have been blessed with wonderful grandparents. They've all passed away now. And like, not only am I the oldest child, but I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of my family. So I was able to get to know my grandparents well and some of my great-grandparents as well. And they've strengthened me. They have helped me build my testimony. My mom is who she is because of her parents. Like, I see so much of them in her and how much love she had for her parents too. And if it's okay, can I talk about her parents for a little bit?
Please.
Is that all right? Her parents are Patricia and Ed Pinager, and they've served in lots of different ways. So my grandparents were called to be mission president and wife or leaders of the England, London, South Mission when I was around 10. At the same time, actually, my other set of grandparents were called to be, my grandpa was called to be a mission president in the Dallas, Texas mission too. So I really had great examples around me. And while my grandparents were serving, they had 3 children that were younger that went with them, or 4 at the time maybe, to England. And my uncle Corey came back senior year to play football at Provo High. He lived with his brother. And during that time, he went on a date and got in a car accident and he passed away. And watching my grandparents, they were over in England. And at the time, President Monson was there and he had a plane ticket he actually gave to my grandma to come back. And I just watched my grandparents during that time and their testimonies of the plan of salvation and how they were able to grieve. And then they quickly went back and had to serve their missionary children, right? And to do that and just what an example they are to me of that. Recently, both of my grandparents have passed away, and I've just been able to reflect on the things they taught me. With the Pinagers, they had a cabin at Bear Lake, and we would go up there in the summers. We would sometimes, for Sunday, my grandpa would get permission to have like sacrament meeting as a family, and we would do a testimony meeting. And I remember that being powerful to hear all of my aunts and uncles share their testimony. Usually the grandchildren did it. But I remember one year, it was probably between my junior and senior year of high school, like my grandpa closed it as anybody else. But I was like, it's just for the older people, even though I'm 2 years younger than my aunt. But then he started closing. He said, wait, like I want to share my testimony. And I remember feeling the Spirit really strongly and grateful that they gave me the opportunity to have my testimony grow and have opportunity to share it and to be around such amazing people. And my grandparents also would do family reunions where we'd have themes, just short little themes. My grandma loved acronyms. And so it was like JBN, just be nice. Or one time it was gumption too, or FTS, follow the sun. Because she taught us to be like a sunflower and always follow the sun, our Savior, Jesus Christ. And one of them was the temple, the only way. And I think that was during the time my grandparents were called to be the temple president and matron of the Manti Temple. And during that time, too, they invited us to come down and we did an endowment session. And afterwards, we went into an upper room of the temple and they were able to teach us in the temple. And some of the things they taught us, I think now are so much more clear with the way that things have been changed, I guess, in the session that I appreciated learning some of that stuff prior from them. And now it's become, I guess, it's even more easy to understand, which I'm grateful for. I was able to speak in my grandma's funeral like a year and a half ago when she passed away and just able to reflect on all the things that she taught me. She was very tenacious. She taught us to be tenacious. And the last years of her life, she couldn't eat food. And so she had a port for her food. My mom said she went over and saw a little note card to pray on her food port. And she said she was feeling bad because she hadn't been grateful for her nourishment that she was receiving from her food port. So she put it there to remind herself to pray over her nourishment. She suffered greatly at the end of her life. And my mom mentioned, my mom was over at her home talking once because my mom has health problems too. And they were talking about them. My grandma said sometimes she would just touch a little spot on her cheek and think, I don't hurt right there. And just be like, Heavenly Father, like, I'm grateful I don't hurt in this one little spot. And so she just was such a great example of gratitude. And she loved motherhood. She loved being a grandma. She's a grandma for many years. Had 38 grandchildren and more great-grandchildren that are coming. But my mom's talk, at the end, she shared a message from my grandma to her grandchildren. And it's very much on this topic we've been discussing. So I'd love to share it, and it's special to me. But this is my grandma's message to her children and grandchildren. My dear, dear children, grands, and greats, I love you so, so much. Words cannot express how much you mean to me. Please remember to do good and be good. And I'll pause there too. That was kind of their theme. My grandpa has it actually on his gravestone, is to do good, be good. And she said, to me, that means to keep your promise to our Savior and Heavenly Father, your baptismal covenants and your temple covenants. Thank you. You are all the best. I will love you forever and ever. Please be good, be worthy, honor, and live your covenants. See you in a while. I'll be watching over you. Love, Mom and Grandma. I just love that, and how important covenants were to her. That those were her final words to her posterity. And you saw it in how she lived her life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was foremost for her. That's what she wanted to share. That's what she wanted all of you to remember to do. And it's just beautiful.
I appreciate hearing that, because that reminds me to be more intentional with my family and loved ones. That example of her intentional love and service and dedication to the Lord is going to bless generations. That is such a great example.
I think it's so meaningful that you have those clear memories of the themes of the reunions, because she did put in that effort to create a meaningful message to go with it.
Can I share the sunflower story? Is that okay?
I would love you to share the sunflower story.
So when I was, I think, 16, we had a dinner at the Rock Canyon Park in Provo. Afterwards, my grandma gathered us on the hill, and she gave us all hats that had sunflowers on them. I still have my hat. And she told us a story. She told us that one day she was going for a walk, and she noticed a little flower growing out of a crack in the sidewalk. And she thought, what a tenacious little flower. And she taught us what tenacious means. It means to never, never give up, to keep going. And she said she noticed its head was facing to the east where the sun was rising. And on another day, she was going for a walk in the evening, and she noticed the flower was a sunflower, and it had turned its head and it was facing the west when the sun was setting. And she told us that she wanted us to be like that tenacious sunflower and always follow the sun, meaning the Son of God, that He's the light of the world. And so right now, it's September right now, and there's sunflowers all over the place. The wild sunflowers aren't so obedient in following the sun, I've noticed, but others really do. I have some in my garden, and I watch them in the morning as they're facing the east. In the evening, they've turned their heads to face the west. And so that was the FTS theme one year too, for Follow the Sun. And so whenever I see a sunflower, I think of my grandmother, and I think that I want to be like her. I want to always follow my Savior.
Brooke, how would you encourage someone to arise with Christ?
I think there are several directions you could go with this, like even the sunflower analogy, to arise your head and face the sun and always follow the sun. But I mentioned before that my husband Clayton and I are serving in a YSA ward. And one of the first Sundays we were there in Relief Society, one of the sisters gave a talk about rise. And I noticed in your Instagram page, you had a definition of arise, and it was to awaken, to move upward, to merge or ascend. And the sister's name was Kayla, and she just talked about how when the Lord or His messengers speak to us, often they say arise or stand up, awake. And she talked about this, and it hit me because I had just received a little bit of revelation, and it had the word arise in it. And I was kind of questioning it, to be honest. And when she mentioned that the Lord and his messengers often use the word arise, I knew that it really was revelation for me. And so it was an answer to my prayer at that time. But she invited us to study standing and rising up and arise, and to think about where is my holy place and to go stand in it. And so some examples of that in the scriptures are like Nephi, when they get to the land of Bountiful, and they've been there for a little while, and the Lord says to him, let me just find this here, 1 Nephi 17, arise and get thee into the mountain. Think about the mountain of the Lord, the temple, right? And it came to pass that I arose and went up to the mountain and cried unto the Lord. There he was told to construct a ship. And when it was done, they said, Lehi, and the voice of the Lord came to him and said, arise and go down into the ship. But my favorite one is 3 Nephi 11. And this is when the Savior comes to visit the people in America. And he says, arise and come forth unto me, that you may thrust your hands into my side, and also that you may feel the prints of the nails in my hands and in my feet, that you may know that I am the God of Israel and the God of the whole earth, and have been slain for the sins of the world. And it came to pass the multitude went forth and thrust their hands into his side, and did feel the prints of the nails in his hands and in his feet. And as they did do, going forth one by one, until they had all gone forth, and did see with their eyes, and did feel with their hands, and did know of a surety, did bear record that it was he of whom it was written by the prophets that should come. And so when I think of our rising with Christ, and if we want to arise or stand up or ascend with Christ and stand in a holy place, what better place than the holy temple? Rise and come be with Christ in his holy temple. And if we want to rise and talk to him on our mountaintop, or if we want to get as close as we can to feeling the prints in his hands and his feet and his side, and know of a surety that he is Jesus Christ, then we should go to the temple. Christ will be with us there. It is his house. And I felt that before, that he knows, being in the temple, that he knows those who enter his house. And he will endow us with power to ascend. And I went to the temple just a couple of days ago, and I thought, what can I share today? And the only thought I received was, invite all to come to my house. So I invite everyone to arise and go be with Christ. Go learn of him in his holy house, the temple.
We are grateful that you joined us today. We would love to hear your stories about how you arise with Jesus Christ. You can find us on Instagram at arise.with.christ, or email us at arisewithchrist.temples@gmail.com.